Hello everyone, welcome back to my video podcast on the future of business and technology, which we are streaming to LinkedIn, to X and YouTube. And you can also watch this on or listen to this on all podcast platforms. Today's topic is how you develop a competitive advantage through agnostic AI. And I'm super pleased to say I'm joined today by Kasia Borowska, who is the managing director of Brainpool AI. Welcome.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so maybe we can start by you giving us an overview of what you do and what Brainpool AI is.
Sure. My background is in mathematics and cognitive science, which is building mathematical models to predict human behavior, which is kind of like the beginnings of AI. And for the past 6 years, we've been running Brainpool AI alongside our CTO, Dr. Peter Babington, which is a company providing custom AI solutions to corporations. So we start by understanding what the business objective is and what the company wants to achieve with AI, and then we build a custom AI solution to directly address those objectives.
Very good. So maybe you can give us an overview of how you see the AI market at the moment and try to cut through some of the hype, because there's so much hype around AI. How would you define the market? What do you see at the moment?
It's a good question. You're absolutely right. There's so much hype. Pretty much everyone talks about AI, even if they don't use AI, they still say that they do. So we see a lot of this FOMO effect. The companies are scared of missing out on this hype, but they don't necessarily fully understand what to do with AI. Everyone's tried ChatGPT. Most of us have seen the very impressive capabilities that the chat has, but how to actually leverage it for the company's benefit. So we typically try to simplify it for our clients. And what we say is think about it as automation. So what are those most manual, repetitive, time-consuming tasks that your teams are undertaking on a day-to-day basis? Most of those tasks will be taken on by AI. It's just a matter of time. So if you continue to do things manually, you're most likely going to stay behind. And that's the reason really to explore this area of AI.
Yeah, super interesting. And this is exactly what I'm seeing. I think companies need to understand that AI, in particular generative AI, is going to transform the world. And I firmly believe that it will transform every industry and every company. And I think a really good way for companies to look at this is to think, can they see themselves as an AI company or an AI-enabled company? And I think this is how far organizations need to go and how far this transformation will become, because AI has so much potential to transform how organizations operate, but it will also transform the products and services they will produce, and it will transform everyone's job and how they work. So it has really wide-reaching impact.
Absolutely.
So do you think AI is relevant for a company of any size?
Well, definitely larger companies already started exploring AI. Many of them have in-house AI teams. We think that a really interesting area is the medium-sized companies. So companies that have just started learning about the possibilities with AI, but they don't necessarily have the resources to hire their own in-house AI team. And that's where it makes sense to work with external consultants like Brainpool to help them understand what are the opportunities and potentially build those bespoke AI solutions that directly address their specific business objectives.
Yeah, this is what I'm seeing as well. I work with lots of large companies, and for me, there's two categories. You get the ones that really understand AI. They're in it completely, and they are now developing amazing solutions to help them. And then there are others that experiment a tiny little bit, but they don't do a lot. And then I find that there are lots of really small companies, startups that are also all in on AI.
Yeah.
And I think the middle layer, the medium-sized companies, they are probably struggling the most.
Yes.
And they probably need most of the help as well.
Absolutely. And that's also where the efficiency gains are so important when in this medium-sized bracket. Any automation can make a huge difference in terms of your reducing your operational costs, for example. So when you see your teams doing the same data intensive tasks day in, day out, then think, AI should probably take that on so I don't have to spend all that money and time doing these processes manually.
Very true. So today's topic is agnostic AI. So maybe you can set us up explaining what that is and why this might be particularly relevant to your target audience.
Absolutely. So we've all seen the big AI vendors like OpenAI, ChatGPT, Anthropic, Claude. There are quite a few closed source large language models, and there are new ones coming out on almost on a weekly basis. So what obviously the bigger vendors are trying to do is lock businesses in to using their products. So the moment you start uploading your data into, say, OpenAI, over time, it becomes very difficult to switch to a different provider in the future, right? Which is quite a risky approach because we know that new, better technologies will be coming out. And so what we try to encourage our clients to do is to build an LLM agnostic infrastructure.
So a large language model, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Exactly, large language model agnostic infrastructure, which means that you can exchange the models as new ones come out. So you can start with a suite of open source large language models where you can use the free version of the models. And then in the future, when the better models come out, you can replace the old ones with the new ones. So you no longer have that vendor lock. You're no longer dependent on just one LLM provider.
So beyond the vendor lock, what other benefits will agnostic AI infrastructure give you?
Well, one of the main benefits is that you can, in fact, leverage those open source models. So we know that there are now many small large language models like Falcon 7B, like Mistral 7B, which can also be very powerful with enough prompt engineering and fine tuning, but they use much less compute power. So not only you're not hit by the commercial model of OpenAI, which, as we know, they charge per token, which is 750 words. So the more words you upload into them, the more expensive it becomes, right? Whereas with the agnostic infrastructure, you can leverage the open source models, which are free to use. And also they're less compute intensive, so they require less computational costs over time. So you're going to have double benefits of essentially getting the same benefit, but for lower cost.
Very good. So what do you see as some of the biggest stumbling blocks? What is preventing organizations from really leveraging AI in their organization?
Yeah, it's a good question. One of the things is data. So obviously AI is only as good as the data that you feed into it. And many businesses have very unstructured data, siloed data sets across different departments, data that's not ready for AI. And so one of the first things we try to encourage companies to do is think about the data structure, how it's stored, how it's collected, and how it can get ready for AI. And then second thing is really doing the thorough strategy development and scoping of the AI project before you start development. We've seen too many companies having spent 200K, building something only to realize that down the line that it doesn't actually work for them for many different reasons. So thinking through what will be the outcome of your AI solution to the accuracy level that you need. So, for example, maybe you work in healthcare or construction where every centimeter counts and you need to get it 100% accuracy to make this useful. Otherwise, if it's 99.9, it's not useful at all, right? So think through all these aspects of exactly what the output needs to look like to make it usable in practice. And then try to create such a strategy in such a way to get you to that final objective.
Very true. Very true.
Is that what you find as
Yeah,
well?
no, and data is a huge challenge. I completely agree. Another huge challenge is skills, I think. And probably even before skills, the general awareness in the organization of how important AI is going to be. So I think if the board is really on board and if they understand it, so if you have a CEO and a leadership team that understand the importance of AI and can drive it into the organization, then I think after that is culture and skills. I think you need the right culture in place where people are free to experiment, where you have this transparency that organizations have this open dialogue so people don't become scared about their jobs and actually feel in the driving seat and say we have some control over how we use AI and that will make our world better. And then, and I think again comes down to companies providing people with the right upskilling and learning opportunities to make sure that they then have the skills and the confidence to use AI.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting what you just said about the culture and people, because we've seen this quite a few times now, that the employees are quite reluctant sometimes to adopt AI. I have an interesting example of this of one of our products, Daisy, which automates the process of designing timber floors. And we developed this solution which essentially designs timber structures automatically in under 10 minutes with a click of a button, which is a process that would take structural engineer about 3 hours. And so when we tried to roll out this solution into our client's business, the most senior structural engineers were saying, oh, how can this AI tool know how to do this? Well, it took us 30 years to learn this skill. And so they didn't want to use the tool. And so what our client had to do is hire junior designers that didn't have any experience straight out of uni, and told them to use our product, our AI design software, from day one, which they did. And then they started getting better designs than the senior designers. And once the senior designers started seeing that, that's when they started adopting the AI tool for their work. So that's we find that it's actually best to get the team involved in the development of the AI. And if you tell the team, you have to teach the AI the skill, otherwise AI knows nothing, then they slowly start feeling like they are part of this journey.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to acknowledge that there is going to be a lot of change. The change is very often quite scary. It will mean retraining some aspects of your jobs. And for this, I think it's really important to be transparent and say, this is what's going to happen. You are in charge. Tell us what you need and see how these tools can make your job better.
Exactly.
And make you more productive, and that there's no plan to replace you in the future. I think people are still central to the success of any business.
Yeah, it's going to be a while before AI can replace anyone, really. It's here to help us rather than replace us.
Exactly. So maybe you can take us through some practical examples and talk about how some of your clients are using AI to help them improve their own businesses.
Sure. So yeah, most of the practical examples we have are around automation, and this is especially relevant for large data sets. So whenever you have a process that's very time consuming because it has to take into account, huge data sets of a few million data points, that's typically a good task for AI. So as an example, we recently worked with a UK-based business which fixes home appliances. So they had a database of 2 million historical call center reports with people calling them and saying, oh, my dishwasher is broken and makes this noise and this light is flashing. So they've given us the text data, 2 million data points, and they ask us to predict what's broken in that dishwasher based on the customer report. Their team that were trying to predict this manually were getting about 50% accuracy, which meant that 50% of the time the engineer who comes into your house to fix the dishwasher doesn't have the right part with them. We managed to build a large language model that increases that accuracy from 50 to 80%, which means that now 80% of the time, the engineer that comes on site to fix your dishwasher knows what's broken just based on the historical reports.
And I guess this has huge implications for their productivity and for their profitability, because they're turning up once, they can fix it straight away.
It has a direct implication on the bottom line, really, because the huge cost saving.
Yeah. Interesting example. Do you have any other examples?
Yes. Other examples, also including large language models, probably 85% of the projects we have now are involving LLMs. is about producing content automatically. So essentially what most of our clients are aiming for is building this central knowledge bank where they can upload all of the documents and essentially make their teams have that understanding of knowledge of historical data that happen within, or events that happen within that company. And thanks to that, they can, for example, automate processes such as producing reports for investors, which is a very manual process, or producing press releases or content or blog articles for any of their clients in the marketing sector. So there is a huge advantage of having that data stored in one central place where any new member of your team, instead of having to somehow try to gain that knowledge from other employees, that knowledge transfer is very difficult to sort out, especially in medium and larger organizations. Now new employees can have instant access to all the knowledge that's ever happened in your company, right? And we think that thanks to large language models, you can build that capability of getting instant access to the information, but then also creating content based on that business information, proprietary information.
Very good. You said in the beginning that you work with large and medium-sized companies.
Mm-hmm.
What sets medium-sized companies apart when you approach AI?
We love working with medium-sized companies. And the reason for that is because they're much more agile and they're very hungry for new knowledge. Especially that knowledge transfer is what they're keen to gain through engagements with our experts. But also they have much faster turnaround times, right? So they can instantly decide, okay, let's just automate this process starting next week, and we go for it. And within the few months project, we can automate a huge chunk of that business, and that's not something that a large corporation typically has the agility to do.
So, what kind of AI tools do your customers want to build, for example? Especially when it comes to using agnostic AI in maybe medium-sized companies?
So it's mainly about trying to help them get more efficient in what they do. So like we just said, it's not about replacing anyone. It's just making our work more efficient. So there are so many tasks that we do every day that we don't really need to be doing. Whether it's going through your mailbox, and it's such a waste of time reading through all this spam that you don't need to read, or whether it's manually writing content about a topic or searching for information throughout all your million folders that everyone always struggles with. So efficiency gains, meaning having all of the information that exists within the company at your fingertips. So you never ever have to go through any folders again. You simply just ask a query to your web application or a chatbot. So we typically speak to our clients and understand how they want to access this information, how do they want to increase efficiency, and then we build a solution that directly addresses that. So for example, some of our clients want us to build an LLM capability from within their Slack channel or from within their Teams dialog box, so they can instantly query any information that they want from within their environment.
Very good. So, how do you work with customers? I guess as a relatively small organization working with lots of medium-sized organizations, there has to be the right way to work together as well. How does this look like?
Yes, it took us a while to figure this out. We actually started off at Brainpool. We started off as a company connecting corporations to data scientists. We have over 500 AI experts in the Brainpool network. And our starting point was hoping that businesses will know how to work with PhD level AI experts. We quite quickly realized that that doesn't work because companies need a bit of guidance in terms of what kind of skills they need. And so now we provide full end-to-end services, meaning we start with what we call an AI scoping program. It's about a 4-week exercise where we understand the client's objectives and we design a detailed step-by-step strategy to meet those objectives, meaning sprint by sprint, phase by phase. We know exactly what we will build, how we'll deploy it, what what kind of open source tools we'll use, and who will be involved in each stage of the project. Because what many clients think is that they can just hire a single data scientist and he will be able to design their whole AI solution and develop it all for them. But businesses don't realize that data scientists are often not very good data engineers. So even though they can design an algorithm, they can't actually code it up. So thanks to the fact that we have all these different variety of skills in Brainpool in-house, we can bring in people in and out of the project as and when required, which makes the whole development much more cost efficient than if the company was to do it themselves. I guess we start with the scoping program, then we prove the concept via POC, and then once the concept works, only then we go into full productization of the solution.
The challenge is also that there's no real definition for data scientists. So some data scientists I meet are business people that have a little bit of understanding of data science. In other organizations, they are data engineers. So it's fascinating. And I think it's really important to understand that you need layers of skills in your organization. And especially when you're a smaller organization or medium-sized company, you haven't got that. They might be able to employ one or two data-focused people or AI-focused people. They can't necessarily afford a whole team.
Exactly. And the skills are getting very nuanced now, aren't they? So there are new skills that came out, like prompt engineer now, So we see that people started specializing in their very niche area. And so it's important to bring in experts in that niche area rather than having one person do it all.
So we're talking about AI. And we touched on the impact on jobs, the impact on industries. Are you scared of AI in any way, or do you feel that we're all ready for this?
I am actually very scared. I think I don't think that AI research should be led by revenue-driven organizations and big tech companies, which, as we know, OpenAI has turned from a non-profit company into a fully for-profit, or they call themselves hybrid, but we know that they're now guided by Microsoft, which is fully a revenue-driven organization. There are many dangers with AI development, which we know that top minds and professors like Stuart Russell, Geoffrey Hinton, who famously just left Google because he is worried, are very, very scared of. And there's this value alignment problem, which no one has solved yet, which is essentially making sure that AI is aligned with our values. That until we solve that, we don't really know what's going to happen. And in the whole history of our civilization, there has never been the case of a less intelligent species controlling the more intelligent species. We are now building AGI, which is what's going to be the more intelligent species, but we have no way of controlling it. We're just hoping for the best.
Yeah, I've had some fascinating discussions on this podcast with Nick Bostrom, for example, who talks about the risks of a super intelligence, and I also had Stuart Russell on, and we talked about the alignment problem. So anyone who wants to listen to those episodes, it's really worth going back to. I very much agree. There are lots of things we don't know, and there are also lots of potentially very big consequences that we haven't anticipated yet. So I'm thinking about the ease at which we can now create content, and I have a real worry that in a few years' time, pretty much all content on the internet could be fake, or at least partly AI generated or manipulated, which is a big challenge, I think.
Yes, so that's one of the things. Obviously, there's a danger of our misuse of AI, apart from just the danger from AI itself. I just think personally, we don't need to build AGI to see great benefits from AI. There's enough benefit in narrow AI, such as using the smaller language models for specific business benefit, specific business domain. Building AGI before we solve the value alignment problem, especially driven by big tech, I think it's a very reckless approach to this, and I would advocate to stop this development until we at least have some idea as to how we would control that more intelligent species in the future.
Yeah, it looks like we're not going to stop anything right now because everything is full steam ahead. What how do we start to control some of the directions we are taking this though? Um, Regulation, I guess, has one important role to play, and we're seeing this now in Europe that there are regulations being introduced. What what do you see? What can we do to control AGI in the future?
Yes, definitely regulations on an international level would be great, which is a really difficult thing to do. I think the EU is currently leading this with the EU AI Act. The UK, US are following suit. There is already some regulations that came out which will be enforceable in the next 2 years. They are to do with using, for example, things like emotional recognition in the workplace, things to protect ourselves, but there isn't any regulations yet as such that would prevent us from developing AGI. And so I think we should really, as all together, try to, on an international level, influence this and make sure that the decisions that are being made are not only revenue driven by the big tech that's developing AI, but also driven by safety and what's good for us humans as a
And
species.
this is so difficult to do, as you say, on a global level, because we've not only got competing companies where Microsoft and Google and others are competing to be the leaders in this space, but then you have countries that are also competing with each other. So you've got the US and China and Russia all trying to get ahead with this technology. And then if you're then thinking, okay, this technology can also be used to win wars in the future, there are real challenges how we control this.
They all draw similarities to the Oppenheimer movie now. We can't stop now because
No.
China is not going to stop. But in the same time, how did that end? I mean, luckily for nuclear power, we managed to reach an agreement, but we need a similar agreement now for AI.
So I'd love to hear your views on the future now, because we are now at a stage where AI is pretty much transforming every organization, where we have generative AI that is new that organizations are looking at. So we're at the top of this hype cycle. Where do you think this is all going over the next 5 to 10 years?
Yes, it's a big question. I think everyone's thinking about now. Definitely you're right to say that AI will transform every business and every industry. That's just a fact. And the businesses that do not adopt AI are likely going to stay behind. I think what's really important is to try to build that central knowledge bank, but with a purpose of building up our human intelligence with the help of artificial intelligence. So we need to maintain our intelligence to stay in control. We need to avoid being lazy. We see this all the time now. People don't bother learning because they can always take out their phone and check information online, or automatic poor quality content being produced by ChatGPT. So we need to maintain the quality and we need to maintain our intelligence. And I think AI has the toolkit to help us do that. So apart from the obvious efficiency gains, the cost savings, and the business benefits that we can get with AI, we also have to think about how can this help us humans bring our intelligence to the next level.
Yeah, I agree. So my hope is that AI will make us more human in the long run if we get it right. And I wrote a whole book on the future skills, and I out of 20 skills, 17 of those are the skills that make us truly human. So they're the things like creative problem solving, emotional intelligence, interpersonal communication, critical thinking, all these things that really truly make us human. And if we spend more time developing those skills and then using AI to automate some of the mundane tasks and really figure out how we as humans can spend more time adding value that we are capable of. as humans have this amazing potential, but a lot of this is wasted by doing stuff that humans shouldn't really be doing, like taking this number out of an Excel spreadsheet and putting this in that spreadsheet. That is such a waste of our time. And but we need to get the balance right, and that is definitely a challenge. So
Agreed. That's very true.
thank you so much for your time today, Kasia.
Thank
That
you
was
very much,
lovely.
Bernard. It was a pleasure.
So for anyone who ever wants to rewatch this, you can simply head to my YouTube channel, or you can watch it on LinkedIn or X. Thank you very much, and as always, let us know your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you.